"Peter, how could you decide to move your parents in without consulting me first?" I challenged, my voice filled with a blend of astonishment and anger. Peter, who had been my husband for 5 years, looked up from his laptop, his smirk only deepening my irritation. "Abigail, stop overreacting. It's just for a short time. Besides, you don't have a say in this," he responded dismissively, his words cutting deep. This house, a picturesque two-story in a serene suburb, was not merely a structure. It was the home my grandparents had bequeathed to me, a place I had planned to raise our son Vincent far from the unsettling influence of Peter's family. "Do you not remember that this house is in my name?" I countered sharply, my hands clenched at my sides as his arrogant smirk began to falter. Just then, our little Vincent, only 3 years old, came toddling into the room, oblivious to the tension. I forced a smile for him, scooping him up and planting a kiss on his forehead, seeking solace in his innocence. "I'm not comfortable with this arrangement, Peter. Your parents have always overlooked me and our personal space. Why invite them into our lives now?" I said, my voice firm yet controlled. Peter shrugged his indifference, adding to my growing frustration. "They're my family, Abigail. It's something you just wouldn't understand," he said dismissively. The term family echoed in my thoughts, mocking me. My own family, who had run a cozy coffee shop in our town, had always been my sanctuary, a stark contrast to Peter's domineering and invasive parents. As our argument reached its peak, the doorbell chimed, cutting through the tension. Peering through the peephole, my heart sank when I saw Peter's parents on the doorstep, suitcases in hand, poised to encroach further into our lives. "Fine, Peter. Let them in, but this isn't over," I declared sharply, handing our son Vincent to him before reluctantly swinging the door open. "Abigail, darling," exclaimed Peter's mother as she breezed past me, barely acknowledging my presence. His father, always stern and distant since our wedding, followed her inside. As they settled into my living room, the space that had once felt like a refuge now seemed invaded. This intrusion was just the beginning, I realized. But something shifted in me as I watched them unpack. I was tired of being the accommodating daughter-in-law, always bending to their demands. I retreated to the kitchen, my resolve hardening. This was my home, my sanctuary, and I was determined to defend it. The days that followed blurred into a series of overbearing changes. Peter's mother, Denise, had a way of making her presence overwhelmingly felt. She rearranged my kitchen, critiqued my parenting, and acted as though she owned the place. One morning, as I prepared breakfast for Vincent, she chided, "Vincent shouldn't be eating that, Abigail. It's not healthy." I bit back a sharp retort, feeling her judgment sting. "He's fine, Denise. It's just muesli," I responded, trying to keep my composure. She shook her head dismissively. "In our house, we believe in a proper diet. You really should learn," she sighed. Her comments pecked at my patience like persistent jabs. Peter, as usual, was of no help, engrossed in his work and oblivious to the escalating tension. One evening, as I was tucking Vincent into bed, Denise barged into his room. "He's still not sleeping through the night. You must be doing something wrong," she accused. Her words hit me like a slap, sowing seeds of doubt about my capabilities as a mother. I knew I had to. I snapped, the frustration I'd been holding back finally breaking through. Denise's eyes narrowed, and with a tone dripping with disdain, she replied, "Clearly, your everything isn't enough. Maybe things would be better if you had a real job and some structure." The anger that had been simmering inside me boiled over. "This is my house, Denise. I'd appreciate it if you remembered that you're just a guest here," I shot back, trying to maintain as much composure as I could muster. Her laughter was cold, dismissive, chilling to the bone. "Oh dear, Peter never told me you were so delusional. This is his house too, and as I have every right to be here as his mother," Denise retorted defiantly. The tension escalated the following day, reaching a tipping point when I found Denise in Vincent's room, her hands buried in his drawers, rearranging his belongings. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. "I'm just organizing. This room is a complete mess," she responded, without even turning to look at me. That was the last straw. "I want you out of my house now," I exclaimed, a mix of fury and desperation in my voice. Denise turned to face me, her expression one of mock surprise. "Your house? Oh sweetie, you're just the wife. This is Peter's house too, and he wants us here." Intrusion and the way they both ignored my feelings. It was all too much. I was tired of being pushed around, tired of my home being invaded by people who didn't respect me. That night, as I lay in bed, ideas began to form in my mind. A plan started taking shape, A plan to take back control of my life and my home. I was determined not only to reclaim my space, but also to assert my standing in this household. It was clear that if I wanted to change the dynamics within these walls, it was up to me to initiate that change. The next morning would be the beginning of a new chapter, one where I set the terms and conditions of how we lived in this house. Peter and his parents had overstepped their boundaries, crossing a line that forced me to acknowledge a hard truth. I could no longer be passive in my own home. The constant intrusion was affecting not only my peace but also my son's future. As tension simmered, I steeled myself for the conflict ahead, knowing the real battle for control of my home was about to begin. The tension was just beginning. A few days later, during a dinner that was already fraught with tension, Peter casually dropped a bombshell that shattered any pretense of normalcy. "My parents need to stay with us longer. Their house is undergoing renovations," he stated, as if it were a minor detail that shouldn't concern me. My anger fled instantly. "Peter, we never even discussed them staying here in the first place," I exclaimed, struggling to keep my voice level. He shrugged, avoiding eye contact, as if to dodge the gravity of the situation. "It's just for a few more weeks. What's the problem?" My voice cracked with frustration. "Your mother treats me like an outsider in my own home," I snapped, unable to contain the boiling resentment any longer. From the corner of the room, Denise chimed in. The tension was just beginning. A few days later, during a dinner that was already fraught with tension, Peter casually dropped a bombshell that shattered any pretense of normalcy. "My parents need to stay with us longer. Their house is undergoing renovations," he stated, as if it were a minor detail that shouldn't concern me. My anger fled instantly. "Peter, we never even discussed them staying here in the first place," I exclaimed, struggling to keep my voice level. He shrugged, avoiding eye contact, as if to dodge the gravity of the situation. "It's just for a few more weeks. What's the problem?" My voice cracked with frustration. "Your mother treats me like an outsider in my own home," I snapped, unable to contain the boiling resentment any longer. From the corner of the room, Denise chimed in, a voice dripping with condescension. "Abigail, you're overreacting. We're family, you should be more understanding," she said, dismissing my feelings with a wave of her hand. That night, as I lay in bed, sleep proved elusive. Denise and Peter's words replayed in my mind, each echo hardening my resolve. I refused to be marginalized in my own home any longer. It was clear that taking a stand was no longer an option but a necessity. The next morning, fueled by a night of restless thoughts, I reached out to my brother Mason, who had always been a source of strength for me. "They're taking over my life, Mason. I can't handle it anymore," I confessed, the strain evident in my voice. Mason's response was immediate and supportive. "Abigail, you have to stand up for yourself. Don't let them push you around. It's your house, your rules," he encouraged firmly. His words instilled in me the courage I needed to confront the situation head-on. I began to gather evidence of Denise's domineering behavior, photos of my rearranged kitchen, notes on disrupted routines, and recordings of her. Armed with this evidence of Denise's disparaging comments, I waited for the right moment. It came one afternoon when both Denise and Peter were in the living room, seemingly relaxed. I entered the room with a determined stride and announced, "We need to talk now." As they turned to face me, I could see the surprise in their eyes, unaccustomed as they were to my assertiveness. I laid out my case clearly and without apology, presenting the evidence of Denise's intrusive behavior and expressing my feelings of being disrespected in my own home. The room filled with tension, but this time I did not shrink from it. I stood my ground, ready to reclaim the respect and autonomy I deserved in my own house. This was not just a moment of confrontation, but a declaration of my independence within my own life and home. My voice was firm, cutting through the tension in the room as I faced Peter, who looked up, clearly startled by my tone. "What's going on, Abigail?" he asked, a hint of unease in his voice. "It's about your parents, Peter. Their constant interference, their lack of respect for my boundaries. It stops today," I declared, clutching a list of grievances. Denise scoffed from her chair, dismissing me with a wave. "This is ridiculous. We're just trying to be helpful." Helpful by undermining me constantly, by making me feel invisible in my own home? I shot back, my frustration at its peak. Peter shifted uncomfortably. "Abigail, they're my parents. We can't just ask them to leave." "No, Peter," I countered sharply, my resolve unwavering. "There are guests in my home, and they've overstayed their welcome. Either they go or I will, taking Vincent with me." The room fell silent, my ultimatum hanging heavily in the air. I could see the wheels turning in Peter's head, but it was Denise who broke the silence. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, her facade cracking. "Try me. I will regret standing up for myself," I retorted, filled with newfound determination. That night, Peter's parents packed their bags. As they left, Denise shot me a venomous look. "You'll regret this, Abigail," she warned, but as the door closed behind them, I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. It was the first step towards regaining control of my life, and I was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The days following Denise and her husband's departure were oddly quiet. Peter's demeanor towards me turned cold and distant. Our interactions were minimal and strained, yet I found solace in the peace of my own home and the joyful laughter of our son, Vincent. One evening, as Vincent played with his toys, Peter broke the silence with an unexpected announcement. "I have to go on a business trip." The news came as a shock, but it also offered a moment of clarity. It was time for me to fully embrace the peace and independence I had fought so hard to achieve. "I'll be gone for a few weeks," Peter announced with an indifferent tone, as if our faltering relationship was merely a minor inconvenience compared to his work obligations. "Fine," I replied sharply, a surge of relief washing over me at the prospect of his absence. As soon as he left, the atmosphere in our home shifted, becoming lighter, almost liberating. I began to reverse the changes Denise had imposed, each correction feeling like a minor triumph in reclaiming my space. However, the real turning point came unexpectedly. I stumbled upon a series of emails on Peter's laptop, which he had left carelessly open. The emails laid bare an affair, a betrayal that sliced through the fabric of our marriage, more cutting than any of Denise's pointed remarks. A storm of anger, hurt, and betrayal engulfed me as the reality of his deception sank in. It was clear that it was time for Peter to face the repercussions of his actions. With a clear mind and a firm resolve, I started to plan my next steps meticulously. The first order of business was to secure my financial and legal standing. I contacted a lawyer, laid out my situation, and initiated the divorce proceedings. Then I turned my attention to the house, my grandparents' legacy, and a symbol of my independence. I reached out to a real estate agent. "I want to sell the house." Quickly and quietly, I told her, my voice firm. Her surprise was evident, but she sensed the urgency and gravity of my decision. "Aren't you sure about this, Abigail? Selling the house is a big step," she cautioned. "I've never been more certain," I assured her, my voice laced with a mix of betrayal and newfound determination. The house went on the market, and to my relief, offers came in swiftly. The thought of Peter returning to find he had lost his grip over this aspect of my life brought a bittersweet satisfaction. Throughout this tumultuous period, I leaned heavily on my family for support. My parents, though shocked by Peter's actions, stood firmly by my side, providing the emotional backbone I needed as I navigated this challenging chapter. Their presence was a constant reminder of what true family support should look like. "And Vincent, we're here for you no matter what," my father reassured me, his eyes tender as he watched Vincent play, blissfully unaware of the storm swirling around us. I quietly vowed to protect his happiness at all costs. Peter's return was inevitable, but I had changed profoundly in his absence. Armed with the truth and a concrete plan, I was ready to confront him and reclaim my autonomy. The day he returned, the air was thick with tension, a tension I had mentally rehearsed many times, imagining every possible reaction. Yet my heart still raced as I heard his key turn in the lock. "Abigail, I'm back," Peter announced, his voice echoing through the now strange-feeling space of our home. I emerged from the kitchen, my posture resolute. "Welcome home, Peter. We need to talk," I said firmly. He looked around, his brow furrowing as he noticed the alterations. "What's going on? The house looks different." I stood my ground, my voice unwavering. "I sold the house, Peter. It's no longer ours." Shock spread across his face. "You did what? You can't just sell a house without discussing it with me." "It was my house to begin with, Peter, and after what I've discovered, you don't have a say in this anymore," I declared, my voice tinged with controlled anger. He scoffed, trying to assert his control. "What are you talking about? What affair?" "I know everything, Peter," I stated firmly, watching his confident demeanor begin to crack. His feeble attempt to deny the allegations was short-lived. "Abigail, it's not what you think," he tried to explain. "I think it's exactly as it appears. You betrayed me, betrayed our family," I countered, the pain evident in my voice. Peter's face shifted from shock to anger. "You're overreacting. We can fix this. There's no we anymore, Peter. I filed for divorce, I declared, extending the divorce papers to him. The subsequent conversation was a chaotic blur of accusations and denials, but I remained steadfast. The man I had married had custody of Vincent. I felt an overwhelming sense of justice and relief. The man I had married had disappeared, replaced by someone consumed by his selfish desires. As he stormed out, vowing to fight the divorce, I felt a complex mix of relief and determination. No matter the challenges ahead, I was prepared to face them for the sake of my future and Vincent's well-being. With a sense of freedom tinged with apprehension, I stepped into my new life, aware that the struggle was far from over. In the weeks that followed, our situation unfolded publicly, exposing not just Peter but drawing his once domineering parents into the fray. Their attempts to reconcile were met with my resolute silence. I had severed ties, focusing all my energy on Vincent and finalizing our divorce. The day of the court hearing finally arrived, and Peter appeared visibly defeated, the weight of his choices bearing down on him. When the judge granted me the divorce along with custody of Vincent, I felt an overwhelming sense of justice and relief. My journey toward reclaiming my life and ensuring a stable future for Vincent had truly begun. Disappeared, replaced by someone consumed by his selfish desires, he stormed out, vowing to fight the divorce. I felt a complex mix of relief and determination. No matter the challenges ahead, I was prepared to face them for the sake of my future and Vincent's well-being. With a sense of freedom tinged with apprehension, I stepped into my new life, aware that the struggle was far from over. In the weeks that followed, our situation unfolded publicly, exposing not just Peter but also drawing his once domineering parents into the fray. Their attempts to reconcile were met with my resolute silence. I had severed ties, focusing all my energy on Vincent and finalizing our divorce. The day of the court hearing finally arrived, and Peter appeared visibly defeated, the weight of his choices bearing down on him. When the judge granted me the divorce, disappeared, replaced by someone consumed by his selfish desires, he stormed out, vowing to fight the divorce. I felt a complex mix of relief and determination. No matter the challenges ahead, I was prepared to face them for the sake of my future and Vincent's well-being. With a sense of freedom tinged with apprehension, I stepped into my new life, aware that the struggle was far from over. In the weeks that followed, our situation unfolded publicly, exposing not just Peter but also drawing his once domineering parents into the fray. Their attempts to reconcile were met with my resolute silence. I had severed ties, focusing all my energy on Vincent and finalizing our divorce. The day of the court hearing finally arrived, and Peter appeared visibly defeated, the weight of his choices bearing down on him. When the judge granted me the divorce along with custody of Vincent, I felt a profound sense of justice being served. After the hearing, Peter's attempts at reconciliation were futile. "You made your choice, Peter. Now you have to live with it," I told him firmly, turning away for the last time. The fallout from our divorce and Peter's affair was swift and severe, tarnishing his reputation and straining his relationships. His once imposing parents now faced social ostracism, a stark reversal of their previous status. As Vincent and I walked out of the courthouse hand in hand, it felt not just like an ending but also a new beginning, a chance to rebuild our lives on a foundation of honesty and freedom from deceit. The future was uncertain, yet was wholly ours to shape. Life after the divorce was like stepping out of a long dark tunnel into the sunlight. I had regained control not just over the now-sold house, but over my life. Vincent, blissfully unaware of the adult complexities, thrived in the stability and love I provided. My days were full but fulfilling, dedicated to rebuilding our lives and managing the coffee shop, which had become my sanctuary. However, the shadow of Peter and his parents occasionally cast a pall over my newfound peace. One evening, as I was closing up the shop, Peter appeared at the door. He looked disheveled and desperate, a stark contrast to the composed man I once knew. "Abigail, please, I need to talk to you," he pleaded, his eyes desperately searching mine for a response. Any remaining spark of compassion I paused, conflicted by the mix of feelings his sudden appearance evoked. "What is it, Peter?" I inquired cautiously. "It's about the alimony and child support," he admitted, his voice filled with shame. "I'm unable to pay it. I've lost my job due to the scandal." Peter's words struck me with a chill of reality. "And my parents are struggling too," he added, his tone desperate. "That's not my problem, Peter. You make your choices and now you have to face the consequences," I responded, my voice resolute yet cold. "But Abigail, I have nothing left. Please, for all time's sake," he pleaded, his voice cracking with despair. A twinge of pity flickered within me, but it was swiftly extinguished by the vivid memory of his betrayal. "All time's sake, those times are long gone, Peter. You should have thought about the consequences before you decided to cheat and lie," I retorted, turning to leave. However, his next words halted me. "I am sorry, Abigail. Truly, I was a fool, and I ruined everything. Please help me." For a brief moment I saw the man I once loved, vulnerable and filled with regret. Yet the pain he caused was too profound, the betrayal too fresh. "I'm sorry, Peter, but I can't help you. You need to figure this out on your own," I said, my voice firm, signaling the end of our shared past. As I walked away, leaving Peter alone, a profound sense of closure enveloped me. The journey had been fraught with betrayal and heartache, but it had steered me toward newfound strength and independence. Life moved forward. Vincent grew, his laughter and curiosity infused our home with joy, while the coffee shop thrived, transforming into a hub of warmth and community. I found solace in simple pleasures: the aroma of fresh coffee, the sound of Vincent's giggles, and the steadfast support of those who loved me. Peter and his parents faded into distant memories, their legacy a stark reminder of the consequences of betrayal. My experience taught me resilience and underscored the importance of standing up for oneself. That evening, as I locked up the shop and gazed at the sky, its hues marking the end of another day, I smiled, holding Vincent's hand tightly. Our future was uncertain yet bright. Step by step, we were venturing into a new chapter of our lives, fortified by our past, but not bound by it.